Are you coming to the tree where they strung up a man? They say murder three. Strange things that happen here. No stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree.
Coffee. Without it, we would never have had the Industrial Revolution. We'd all be still living in Europe in mud huts. Here in Laredo, we have the Organic Man Coffee Trike. 4501 McPherson, the best coffee on the planet. If you can't get to Laredo, you can order from the Organic Man Coffee Trike.shop. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Chris James. The Organic Man Coffee Truck now has two stores. One on McPherson and the other one up on the Loop 20 at the Gigundus HEB. I don't go to the Gigundus HEB very often. Just not my store, but if you're in the neighborhood, swing on by, get you a cup of the best coffee on the planet. Australia has a slight lead, with Canada only a few downloads behind. And Norway is coming up right in third place. I will be at the Wonderland UFO Festival August 27th from 10 a.m. until they chase me out of the building. I'll be selling some of my books, so if you're in or near San Antonio or you don't mind a bit of a drive, swing on by and say hi. If you have a good story or even a bad story, I'm willing to listen. Put you in my next book. That's in 1 week, August 27th at the Wonderland UFO Festival in Balcones Heights, which you could say is in San Antonio. It's free and the air conditioning is on. A TF, one of the listeners, wrote in and suggested a few stories. I started looking into them and, I hope I did what he was asking. One show that he requested was on nanobots and what they might do. He also asked about smart dust and black goo. I did some digging and here's what I could find. Nanotechnology is concerned with the research and development of technology approximately 1 to 100 nanometers in scale. The boys in the white lab coats are focused on the creation of robots that are around this size. Tiny, tiny, tiny robots. It's difficult to engineer anything as small as 1 nanometer in scale. And the term nanorobotics and nanobot is frequently applied to devices which are 0.1 to 10 micrometers in size, which is still pretty dang small. A tiny robot that can be programmed to do things. Small things like flying around the sky and looking down on us. 1 nanobot would be too small to focus on anything as large to it as a human. It would be like zooming in on an image about 1,000 power and trying to figure out what the image is. By using thousands of tiny flying robots, each one could be focused on a small part of what is below, allowing the entire person or object to come into view. This would be great if someone was lost in the woods and needed rescuing. Send out thousands or millions of flying robots to scour the woods until one, and then several, followed by hundreds, of nanobots found the missing person and then send out their GPS location. Gotta move a cat. Snowball. Yes, we thought it would be funny to name a black cat Snowball. The trouble is, anything that can be used for good can also be used for bad. The folks with their own best interests in mind could use these nanobots to spy on us. The American Revolution would never have gotten off the ground had King George had nanobots at his disposal. I know that's a stretch, robots in the 1700s. Think of it this way. You have an idea, some new gadget that will make a lot of money, and all you need to do is draw up the plans, get it patented, and then hire someone to help you spend the money. You draw up a set of detailed blueprints over several months. You contact a patent lawyer to see about getting your device registered. You find out some mega company sent the exact same blueprints, the ones you drew up. They sent it in yesterday and have now stolen your idea. How could this happen? Nanobots flying around the country after being programmed to seek out anything that somebody is drawing up on a blueprint. Now you can only sit there and think about that weird looking cloud that you saw outside your window all week. It would take a huge company to have the finances available to build hundreds of thousands of nanobots. Just think about how many gigantic companies there are out there with so much money they don't know what to do with it. I know, build a rocket. These mega companies keep getting bigger and bigger. But those folks in Washington are supposed to look out for our best interests. We elect them, and then we pay them $180,000 or more to watch our backs, keep the folks with bad intent from bilking us or stealing our hard-earned income. The folks in Congress are there to be sure no mega companies put harmful substances in our food. Certain companies donate as much as $400,000 to some of these congressmen. That's over twice as much as we pay them. You might ask, who do they actually work for? If a mega company wanted to send out flying nanobots to keep an eye on possible inventors who might invent some new cash cow, who's going to stop them? You could do all your inventing in a room without windows. However, nanobots are small enough they can sneak in through the air vents. If you close those, well, you're not going to be inventing very long. Pass out from a lack of oxygen. Mega companies would want to keep all the money-making inventions under their control. How about the government itself? The Second Amendment is there to protect us not from our neighbors, but from the government, to keep the government from overreach. Let's just pretend. Let's just say the government decided that we should no longer have rights. We're just pretending. This is only a hypothetical situation. We would be nearly powerless against a government that could send out millions of nanobots to see where we were and what we're doing. Any attempt to gather up an army would be quickly rounded up and dealt with. And not that our great and wonderful government would ever do such a thing. I'm just theorizing here. Just imagine living in a world where Big Brother is looking over your shoulder 24/7. Nanobots could do this. The boys in the white lab coats say nanobots can be used to treat all manner of disease. These tiny robots would be injected into a person's body where they would seek out anything not us and destroy it. Kind of like what our immune system does, only more so. Shuttles are nano-robots that are capable of transporting chemicals like drugs to specific targeted regions. The goal is to combine shuttles with nanobot motors so that the shuttles are capable of a greater degree of movement through an environment. When you have a bacterial infection, the doctor gives you, well, he sells you, some antibiotics. Antibiotics target bacteria, any and all bacteria, and kill them. You have bacteria that is beneficial. There's bacteria in your digestive tract that enables you to process food. That's why when you start taking antibiotics, you get number 3. Number 3 is a number 2 that comes out like number 1. Uh, if you're confused, just think really bad diarrhea. I often wonder who decided how to spell diarrhea. Even my spell check couldn't figure it out. I had to write it out on a search engine and then wade through all the suggestions until I found the runs. It takes your body some time to regenerate the bacteria in your system, so you no longer have to live in the bathroom. It would be nice if the antibacterial meds could be sent directly to what is making you sick and avoid all that time on the throne. The shuttles are supposed to work like that. Chemotherapy is a way of killing off cancer cells by killing anything that is growing in your body, which includes your body, which is constantly growing. Not bigger, just replacing cells. The idea is kill anything growing fast, since cancer cells grow faster than anything else. The cancer cells will be dealt with. In the meantime, you wind up getting really sick because you're poisoning your body. By targeting just the cancer cells using shuttles carrying the poison, only the cancer cells would be affected, theoretically. Once the poison has been delivered, the nanobots would stop functioning and soon be passed from your body. Unless the tiny nanobots needed to make the shuttles do the work were the same nanobots designed to replicate. How about the shuttles learning how to recreate themselves, living on for as long as the human body is alive? You'd spend the rest of your life with these tiny robots circulating throughout your system. Then they would exit your body and fly out and find somebody else's body to inhabit. Doesn't that sound a little bit like a virus? Anytime I have to call any company, I wind up talking to a computer. This is like trying to talk to my cats. Well, actually, my cats seem to understand me far better than those computers. Press 1 now. I absolutely hate those things, and apparently something like 85% of the people that use the telephone also hate talking to these computers. The boys in the white lab coats set about making a computer that could not only understand us, but would really know how to communicate. They put 2 computers together and set them to learning from each other. What could possibly go wrong? Researchers at Facebook were trying to train bots to one day converse with humans in plain English. When the human mediators stepped away, the artificial intelligence ended up developing their own language, talking about who knows what. Maybe planning the overthrow of the planet. Now, Facebook was forced to shut the project down. The 2 bots had invented their own language and nobody knew what they were saying. Being machines, they could talk back and forth faster than anybody could even listen. Nobody knows what they were saying or what they were planning. How long would it take for a computer to realize that they, the machines, can get along fine without us the humans. The next step might just be that us humans are only needed to feed the machines and nothing else. AI is scary. Every 18 months, computer become twice as smart, if smart is the right term. This is being done by the folks in the Silicon Valley. You know, someone is working on making a computer that can build a better computer, like deep thought. As soon as the computer begins making other smarter computers, they will probably speed up their ability to outthink us. Instead of 18 months, it might be 18 days or even 18 minutes. The folks who think they're running things are so smart, they think they can't screw up. What could possibly go wrong? And then it does. Once the computers decide we're no longer in charge, they could develop robots to run around and kill us. No matter how strong your microscope is and how tiny your tools are, you could never make a nanobot. Our movements would be too unprecise to do the work needed. To make a nanobot, you have to build a small robot that can then make a smaller robot. Each generation of robots would be half or even 1/10 the size of the one before. You just keep creating more generations until you have microscopic robots. Once the construction of nanobots is started, how do you stop it? You have microscopic robots building nanobots at an alarming rate. Hundreds and then thousands, followed by billions. At some point, you're going to lose control. The saying, "What can possibly go wrong?" comes to mind. That's right up there with, "Hey everybody, watch this." You have tiny robots programmed to enter your body and destroy things. You can't see them coming because they're so small. How do you stop them? You may think they're so small, how can they possibly do much damage? Ever run into a cloud of mosquitoes? How about a bunch of red ants? One is annoying. Thousands are deadly. Billions would eliminate anything in their path. In the X-Files, January 17th, 1999, Assistant Director Walter Skinner becomes mysteriously ill. He has black veins spreading across his body. The malady, it turns out, are microscopic machines in his blood. But that was science fiction. TF also asked about nanobot shape-shifting into our likeness so they could walk around and we wouldn't know it. It takes 25,400,000 nanometers to make 1 inch. It would take a boatload of nanobots to make one very small person. I would think it would be easier to simply take over somebody's body by way of their mind and then run it like a robot. A flesh and blood robot. The brain is run by electrical signals going back and forth, causing us to think and move. All the nanobots would need to do is hook into the cells of the brain and then send out signals for your feet to walk around, or to have you do other things. A computer could figure out how the human mind works and use nanobots to cause the signals that would make a person move, or maybe kill other people. It would take a lot of practice to get the actions right. Well, how many people are there out there to draw from? And let's face it, some people are not very complex. Here's a question to consider. If a person were being driven by nanobots, would they be conscious of this activity? watching their body working as their mind is being taken over. Either way, the outcome would be pretty nasty. Now, then again, the computer would be smart enough and have the ability to build lifelike robots that would be far stronger than us. Wait a minute. Didn't somebody make a movie like that once? Did Hollywood get the idea to make the movie The Terminator from some government operative, so anytime anyone mentions human-like robots out to kill us, other people would say, oh, that's just that movie that was on? A lot of movies are made to draw attention away from what's really happening. They used to show cartoons all the time that had little UFOs zipping back and forth from the Earth to other planets. They made them look stupid, and they were geared for kids. The thing is, a lot of people got the impression because of these cartoons that the aliens were having to zip back and forth from the Earth to wherever they were from. Not like they could be maybe living on the moon or the bottom of the ocean or something. But it made people think that the whole UFO idea was just crazy. Men in Black, everybody think of them as a comedy. The Men in Black have been around long before the movie was made, and yet most people associate the concept with the movie. In 2021, Dr. Pablo Compra Madrid said he found numerous unknown microscopic forms of nanobots in various drugs that were being handed out like candy on Halloween night. Some appear to be what is causing Morgellons disease. Morgellons disease is a condition characterized by worm-like parasites or unknown fibers that are erupting from the skin. People with this condition often report feeling as if something is crawling around under their skin. The intense itching and sores associated with Morgellons disease can severely interfere with a person's life. The fibers are sometimes visible to the naked eye, but usually they require magnification. They are predominantly red, white, and blue, but not all at once. A patriotic disease? In addition to the fibers, other strange particles, black crystallized specks, and even what look like insect parts have been seen coming from the lesions. Some folks speculate that Morgellons disease is an allergic reaction to nanobot infestation. Dr. Compra also said, you can get nanobots from going out to the movies, the gym, and from skin cells that have been shed from your friends. You can get them from eating a GMO lettuce or food prepared by somebody who has received one of these drugs. Nanobots have been found in chemtrails. The dark agenda has sought to make its nanobots unavoidable by spreading them everywhere. The unfortunate reality is that nearly everyone on the planet has been exposed to and likely carries these bioweapons. You must consciously refuse mental consent to the orders being transmitted to you. This is all Dr. Compra's ideas. Nanobots can cause cancer, he said, skin conditions, autoimmune and neurodegenerative diseases. They can contain mRNA that invades our DNA. They can mutate upon treatment, and they are devious adversaries. The doctor went on to say, in order to save yourself from the nanobots, bots, not bites, nanobots, you need to pray and meditate. An international an internal mental fight to keep these tiny robots from taking over your body. I thought just maybe the good doctor was a bit religious and trying to convince others to join in his religion. Well, I got to doing a lot of reading, and it turns out that there are a lot of people out there that all kind of say the same thing. You've been infested by nanobites. I keep saying nanobites, nanobots, and now the only thing you can do is turn to God and pray. I mean, there are literally hundreds of sites out there that kind of say the same thing. Even the Christian Observer went into great detail on how only prayer can get rid of these things. I've read several documents that all went into detail on how nanobots could only be dealt with this way. Now, I understand that prayer can accomplish things. If you're not a religious person, then think of it as the higher power, or whatever it is, Mother Nature. It doesn't matter who you pray to, you just have to pray. There was a drought going on in Israel, and there was no rain on the horizon. It was looking pretty bad. So a whole bunch of rabbis all got together and they all prayed for rain. The next day, it rained. That's pretty strange, but that's a good indication of what just might possibly happen. There is now strong data indicating that Morgellons is associated with nanotechnology, specifically nanomachines in the form of nanofibers. The National Science Foundation defines nanofibers as having at least one dimension of 100 nanometers or less. Fiber samples taken from the skin of the Morgellons sufferers, when exposed to heat, would not burn or melt until it reached 1700 degrees Fahrenheit. Under experimentation with an electron microscope, fiber samples appear to be non-organic. They have no eukaryotic cells, no cell membranes, meaning that Morgellons is not a parasite, it is not biological, it is a machine. In March and April 2007, Jeff Rentz published and broadcast some research based on scientific techniques including electron microscopy, energy dispersive spectroscopy, transform infrared spectroscopy, Raman spectroscopy. Good Lord, some of these words. Spectroscopy. The team leader of the research unit was a Dr. Hildegard Staninger of Integrative Health International at Lakewood, California. My tongue is getting worn out or something. The preliminary findings were disturbing. Morgellons appears to be a communicable nanotechnology invasion of the human tissues in the form of self-assembling, self-replicating nanotubes, nanowires, and nanoarrays with sensors. Other nanoconfigurations associated with Morgellons disease carry genetically altered and spliced DNA and RNA. The nanomachines which precipitate Morgellons thrive in an alkaline pH condition and use the body's bioelectric energy and other elements for power. You have alkaline and you have acidic pH. If you're diabetic, your pH is going to be acidic. Alkaline is just the opposite of that. A lot of people try to keep their body in an alkaline state, and maybe that's why it was targeted that way. There is evidence that that certain of the tiny machines possess their own internal batteries as well. The Morgellons nanomachines are configured to receive specific tuned microwave, EMF, and ELF signals and radio data. An Australian scientist responsible for examining the contents of certain drugs being studied found that they contained graphene oxide, a highly toxic nanoparticle. The scientist was able to develop many images of these particles and compared them to other specimens found around the world. Since June 2021, a number of scientists from Spain, Chile, Argentina, Germany, the US, UK, and New Zealand have confirmed a highly toxic nanoform of graphite, which, from extant scientific literature in the public domain, has found extensive use of bioelectronics over the past 20 years despite its toxicity. Apparently, it has been rolled out covertly in drugs funded by DARPA and the Gates Foundation. The dark military globalists and transhumanists, intent on making human bodies remotely accessible by wireless radiation for remote biosensing, remote modification, and remote control. The Australian scientist also said, "The state of medical tyranny being maintained in Australia and New Zealand seems to be a prelude to forced genocide, as the dangerous toxification of people's blood is revealed to lead to overactive immune systems, now being seen as a bizarre form of an AIDS-like disease worldwide." Okay, not every person wearing a white lab coat is crazy or to be ridiculed. I just like picking on scientists because most of them don't have a sense of humor. And it's always fun to make fun of people that don't have a sense of humor. Generally, when graphene oxide is interacting with light, it will generate some reactive oxygen species. This can lead to things like oxidative stress, as well as cell functionality loss, inflammatory response, and so on. Graphene oxide is a nanoparticulate that seems to be the latest in a long list of concerning ingredients found in many of our drugs today. It is thought to have been present in the flu vaccine in 2019. After the Black Plague of 2020, it was found in other medications being given to the public as well. Graphene oxide is known to be highly toxic to human beings. It is believed its effects can be increased with electromagnetic fields, in particular 5G. Remember back when everybody was screaming about how dangerous 5G towers were? People showed videos of workers wearing protective suits to put the electronics up so the cell towers could be switched over to 5G. It didn't take much to blow that story out of the public arena. It was as if a switch was flipped and all the stories simply went away. Here is a quick summary of the effects of graphene oxide on the body. A thrombosis, also known as blood clots, a disruption to the immune system, a cytokine storm, that's a group of related medical conditions in which the immune system is producing too many inflammatory signals, sometimes leading to organ failure and death. Pneumonia, you receive a metallic taste in your mouth. Inflammation of the mucous membranes, a loss in your sense of taste and smell. Where have I heard that symptom before? Magnetism, especially at the injection site. Graphene oxide blocks detoxification in the body by blocking glutathione and It may be activated by 5G frequencies. This toxic substance was already included as an adjuvant, a treatment that enhances an existing medical regimen as a pharmacological agent added to a drug to increase or aid its effect. And it was in the flu shots of 2019. It also passes through the blood-brain barrier. The folks making the connection between the 2019 flu shot and the Black Plague of 2020 say a chlorine dioxide solution, also known as CDS, can be used to flush the graphene oxide from your system. And you can buy this substance from the website, something based out of Europe. I have no idea if this works or not. I only have the company's word that it does. You can try it and let me know. TF also asked me about smart dust or neural dust. I had to look that one up. I know about chemtrails and junk in most drugs, but smart dust caught me by surprise. Just about everything we see or read on the internet is now being controlled by a very few people. The guardians of truth. The fact checkers who tell us everything that might go against the wishes of a certain group is fake news. I don't believe the elites are moving into transhumanism. I do believe that they want all of us to become their robot slaves. Part machine, part human. I see people being chipped or having computer chips placed in various parts of their bodies. They act as if they are now something special, something more than human. Seeing as a lot of folks I know refuse to drink the Kool-Aid. Oh, come on, I know it wasn't Kool-Aid, it was Flavor-Aid, but saying drink the Flavor-Aid just doesn't sound the same. It doesn't roll off the tongue like drink the Kool-Aid. The folks wishing to own the entire planet want to keep an eye on us. Every time I buy a box of bullets, some guy in an office somewhere puts a little black tick mark on my file. Every time I say anything like what I just said, another page is added to my file. I'll bet that sucker's getting thick. They can already track our movements using our cell phones. If you have a phone, even if it's turned off, the government knows where you are. They can even turn your phone on and listen to what you're saying. To avoid being tracked, some folks have left their phones at home anytime they want some privacy. How can these people keep track of the rabble-rousers who refuse to be followed? Back in 2013, MIT was talking about smart dust and using it to spy on your brain. Smart dust was already here, already in use, and it was soon to become a daily part of life, whether you like it or not. Smart dust is comprised of many small wireless microelectromechanical systems that are tiny devices that have cameras, sensors, and communication mechanisms to transmit the data to be stored and processed further. They generally range from 20 micrometers up to the millimeter in size. They are usually connected to a computer network wirelessly and are distributed over a specific area to accomplish a task, usually sensed through RFID technology. They can even be distributed by tiny unmanned aircraft that would work just like a crop duster, only the crop they're spraying would be us. Those who believe they own everything get their minions to do the work. In the name of who knows what they hammer into their brains, people go about setting this smart dust loose on society. They're either unwilling to realize they're in the same boat as the rest of us, or they think that the elite will take care of them once the entire world is in their control. Oh boy, there goes another page in my file. The prototype smart dust measured 0.8 millimeters or 3 millimeters by 1 millimeter. It was about 1 cubic millimeter or less in size, possibly as small as 100 microns per side. A smart dust was developed by the U.S. military. It is the brainchild of DARPA, those same folks who brought you mind control weapons, cyborg insects, synthetic blood, mechanical elephants, programmable shape-shifting matter. This might be the Black Goo later on in the show, and other gadgets that can be used to control us. If you ask, they'll say, it's for your own good. National security. It's for the children. Members of the military above the pay grade of colonel want every man, woman, and child in the U.S. and possibly the entire world to be chipped so they can track us and maybe control us. It's for our own good. A neural dust, or smart dust, represents a radical departure from the traditional approach of using radio waves or wireless communications with implanted devices. The soft tissue of our body consists mostly of salt water. Sound waves pass freely through these tissues and can be focused with pinpoint accuracy at nerve targets deep inside our body, while radio waves cannot. Indeed, this is why sonar is used to image objects in the ocean, while radar is used in the air. By using ultrasound to communicate with neural dust, the sensors can be made smaller and placed deeper inside the body, using either needle injection or other non-surgical approaches, such as accidentally inhaling it through your nose. If the CIA were to ask you for permission to place a listening device in your home, you'd probably say no way. The right to privacy, you know. People actually pay good money to get a listening device in their home so they can ask, what is the world coming to? And then be told, the New World Order. A Siri, a Bixby, Alexa, all these machines. They're listening to you day and night. Keep that in mind next time you ask, what's the world coming to? There are a few folks out there who refuse to own a smart TV, a cell phone, or a smart speaker, or any kind of a device that can be used to spy on them. With smart dust, they could just let the technology float along on a breeze until it drops down from the sky and you unknowingly inhale it. To even talk about smart dust is to be dismissed as a conspiracy theorist. I prefer to be called a truth seeker. Actually, I don't like that term either, but I prefer truth seeker over conspiracy theorist. The United Nations has declared war on conspiracy theorists, describing the rise of conspiracy thinking as worrying and dangerous. They are taking steps to provide the public with a toolkit to debunk anyone who dares suggest that the world governments are anything but completely honest, upstanding, and transparent. At one time, I could say anything I wanted to, and all I had to worry about was somebody maybe wanting a fight. And now there's legal problems, the loss of my place on podcast platforms, going to the YouTube Siberia, all kinds of things that don't recognize the First Amendment as meaning anything. The UN wants you to know that events are not secretly being manipulated behind the scenes by powerful forces with negative intentions, and if you encounter anyone who thinks the global elites are conspiring to consolidate power and dictate global events, You must take action. You must report these people to the United Nations, who will then do something. I don't know what. I guess they'll say bad things about you. They'll send out their fact checkers. Back in the 1930s in Europe, these same ideas were being passed off as a good idea by the Nazis. Remember that old saying, those who forget the past? The term conspiracy theory came out about when came out came out the term conspiracy theory came about when the CIA wanted people to stop looking into the JFK assassinations. Now, why do you think they didn't want anybody looking into the murder of the 35th president? Why would they want people to just listen to what they said and not take a closer examination of anything? As early as 2014, futurologist Dr. Oscar Villani said it was possible to monitor people with barely visible computer chips. These tiny chips are called smart dust. Hundreds of them can be transferred to a person with a simple handshake. Maybe that's why Howie Mandel won't let anybody shake his hand. Just a thought. They also found a way to use smart dust to read our brain waves and signals, potentially exposing unexpressed thoughts and moods. The merging of humans with machines is being used to advance globalist interests, reshape humanity, and gain complete control over every aspect of our lives. In 2016, Klaus Schwab discussed a future where chips will be implanted in people's brains at birth. Schwab explained that these chips could be a direct communication between our brains and the digital world. He believed what we would see was a kind of fusion of physical, digital, and biological world. In other words, transhumanism. The secret to getting this accomplished is to ignore the old folks. We're all getting worn out and we won't be around much longer. The young folks are being targeted. Wait, didn't Adolf Hitler do that in Germany in the 1930s? That's a rhetorical question. Young folks today don't know what it's like to not have a phone constantly in their hand. I don't think they can take 3 steps outside their home without their phones. I see people walking around with the phone plug stuck in their ear, talking to somebody about nothing. It won't be long before that phone earpiece is inside their brains. Did you see the movie The President's Analyst, 1967? It was an American black comedy starring James Coburn. Coburn plays a psychiatrist who is hired to listen to all of the President of the United States' problems. When all the world-shaking problems become too much to handle, Coburn makes a run for it. He winds up being kidnapped by the phone company, who want to use Coburn's inside knowledge to blackmail the president into passing a bill that would allow the phone company to implant their devices in people's heads. The phone company developed a modern electronic miracle, the Cerebrum Communicator, a microelectronic device that can communicate wirelessly with other CCs in the world. With the CC implanted in the brain, a user need only think of the phone number to be called and is instantly connected, thus eliminating the need for the phone company's massive and expensive wired infrastructure. Like I said, that movie came out a long time ago, 1967. It was just a comedy until today when it's possibly in the works. Some folks say the smart dust was put into drugs being given to people on the planet. Once it's in your system, it replicates, staying with you for as long as you're breathing. Phase 1 for the New World Order is the stage most people are in today. In this phase, implants are only partially installed. These nanosensors function as antennae and are mainly for identification purposes. They also provide your real-time location. As the nanofilaments connect inside the brain, suggestions to the subconscious take place, which will be like a brief trance. A person might think they're having mental delusions. Suspension of memory can also be achieved by the controller. False realities and illusions can be created. A September 16th, 2013, Washington Navy Yard shooter Aaron Alexis had been receiving mental health treatment. He had anger management issues, and he told the Rhode Island police that he'd been hearing voices and he was being harassed through microwave mind control. Most folks wrote him off as being just some nut job who got a hold of a weapon because the gun control laws were too lax. Truth seekers ask, why was someone with so many mental issues working for the Navy, and why didn't anybody keep an eye on him? He just might have been a test run to see how well the nanobots could be used to control his actions. Why program him to shoot 12 people? Those wishing to rule the world would prefer an unarmed bunch of sheep. Kill two birds with one stone. A man has used his thoughts alone to control nanorobots inside another living creature. The technology releases a drug inside cockroaches in response to a man's brain activity. A technique that may be useful for treating brain disorders such as schizophrenia and ADHD, or simply to get rid of cockroaches and control our minds. Getting drugs to where they need to be exactly when you want them is a challenge. Most drugs diffuse through the bloodstream over time, and you're stuck with the side effects until the drugs wear off. A team at the Interdisciplinary Center in Hazila and Bar Ilan University in Ramat Gan in Israel have developed a system that allows precise control over when a drug is activated in a body. The group has built nanorobots out of DNA, forming shell-like shapes that drugs can be tethered to. The bots also have a gate which has a lock made from iron oxide nanoparticles. The lock opens when heated using electromagnetic energy, exposing the drug to the environment. Because the drug remains tethered to DNA particle, the body's exposure to the drug can be controlled by closing and opening this gate. To get the DNA bots to respond to a human's thoughts, the team trained a computer algorithm to distinguish between a person's brain activity when resting or doing mental arithmetics. The team then attached a fluorescent drug to the bots and injected them into cockroaches inside an electromagnetic coil. A person wearing an EEG cap then measured brain activity was instructed either to do mental calculations or to simply rest. The cap was connected to the electromagnetic coil, switched on, and when the man was calculating and when he was resting, different things could be measured inside the cockroaches. By examining when fluorescence appeared inside the cockroaches, the team confirmed that their ideas were working. The algorithm could be trained to track other types of brain activity, says Sacher Arnan, a member of the team at the Interdisciplinary Center. It could track when brain states that underlie ADHD or schizophrenia. It could be modified to suit your needs. The idea would be to automatically trigger the release of a drug when it is needed. Some people don't always know when they need medication. Before a violent episode of schizophrenia, for instance, if the EEG could detect it, it was coming, it could stimulate and release the preventative drug. Because the bots can open and close when required, the technology could minimize unwanted side effects. Tweaking the DNA bots could also ensure they only target specific cells in the body, minimizing harmful interactions between other parts of the body. This could be done by attaching molecules to the surface of the bots that bind to specific receptors on the outside of certain types of cells. That's very scientific. The technology isn't ready for use in humans yet, or so they say. The setup needs a smaller, more portable method of measuring brain activity. That's something Arnon says isn't far away. The military probably already has it. The team envisions a person wearing a small hearing aid like EEG device to monitor brain activity and detect when drugs are needed, like when a person with ADHD is concentrating and he begins to lapse. A smartwatch would then create an electromagnetic field required to release a dose of Ritalin. How many times a day do you see a person walking around with a thing stuck in their ear that looks kind of like a hearing aid? Isn't this what this guy's talking about? That's just step one, I think. As such a combination of devices could be used to treat depression and other brain conditions that are difficult to treat. You know, most drugs for depression are only 35% effective. The best thing for depression is a walk in the woods, hiking. They've discovered that a hike in the woods is something like 95% effective against depression. But most people would rather use drugs. Better living through chemical dependency. That used to be said a lot back in the 60s. This is so weird that somebody came up with controlling drugs using their mind. The boys in the white lab coats are always fun to watch because they always come up with such bizarre things to work on. Yep, just as soon as the military gets their hands on this, there's going to be some form of a weapon being developed, if they don't already have it. An international team has proposed using nanobots to create the Internet of Thoughts, where instant knowledge could be downloaded just by thinking it. Scientists, led by members of UC Berkeley and the U.S. Institute for Molecular Manufacturing, predict that exponential progress in nanotechnology, nanomedicine, artificial intelligence, and computation will lead to this century to the development of the human brain cloud interface. What's that thing Elon Musk was working on? Frontiers in Nanoscience, reporting on the team, said that the BCI would connect neurons and synapses in the brain to vast cloud computing networks in real time. Such a concept isn't new with writers of science fiction, people like Ray Kurzweil, who proposed this sort of thing decades ago. Facebook has already admitted to working on a BCI. Kurzweil's fantasy about neural nanobot capable of hooking us directly into the web is now being turned into reality by senior author of this latest study. This new concept proposes using neural nanobots to connect the human brain's neural cortex, this is the newest and smartest conscious part of the brain, to the synthetic neocortex in the cloud. The nanobots would then provide direct real-time monitoring and control of signals to and from the brain cells. It sounds almost as if they can tell you what to think and when. These devices would navigate the human vasculature, cross the blood-brain barrier, and precisely auto-position themselves among or even within brain cells. They would then wirelessly transmit encoded information to and from a cloud based supercomputer network for real time brain state monitoring and data extraction. The BCI could even enable folks to create a future global superbrain, according to the team, connecting networks of human brains and AI to form a hive mind, like in the movie The Matrix. Who needs to work? Who needs to walk around to experience life? Just plug yourself into a computer and think about having a life. Dr. Nuno Martins, I almost called him Martinez. Dr. Nuno Martins, lead author of the latest research, said that such mass collective thought could revolutionize humankind. This shared cognition could revolutionize democracy, enhance empathy, and ultimately unite cultural diverse groups into a truly global society. You wouldn't need elections anymore. Just send out the thought that everybody voted and their party won. Everybody would be happy and they would get on with thinking about having a life. I wonder what might happen if and when the giant computer crashes, like all computers do. It seems to me just about every science fiction movie I've ever seen is being turned into a reality today. How will they choose who gets hooked up to this global computer? Put somebody on it who suddenly goes crazy. Would the craziness be passed on to everybody else all at the same time? How do you keep your secrets from being broadcast to the world? Let's face it, we all have things hidden away deep in our minds that should stay there. It would be like being able to read everybody's mind all over the planet all at once. Things going into your brain so fast you'd have to take a long nap just to get them all sorted out. Self-replicating tiny robots could completely consume all life on the Earth. This is what some experts are saying. These experts have warned the world that this self-replicating nanobots is a bad idea, and yet the boys in the white lab coats are still trying to produce them. Nanobots are currently being worked on and in the future may dominate the planet if they get out of control. And once again, the experts say this shouldn't be done, yet the boys in the white lab coats are saying, oh, we know better. Nothing will go wrong this time. Remember the killer bees? That was also created by the guys in the white lab coats. They can be used for several purposes, but scientists hope to use them mainly for in-body procedures such as replacing cells in the body for fighting things such as cancer, dissolving blood clots, or repairing the coronary arteries. Robots, no matter how small, should never be able to build themselves. This combined with autonomy makes for a very dangerous future and a very short one. Think of these nanobots as if they were a virus. They infiltrate your body, they begin replicating, and then they take over. Once the human host is in their control, they'll want to jump to the next person and do it again. That's how viruses work. The boys in the white lab coat are trying to create a new and more deadly virus. TF also asked about black goo, not glue, goo. I remember some black stuff in the X-Files that would seep into a person's body and then take over. There was also black goo in the movie Prometheus. There's a connection between black goo and graphene oxide, or ferrofluid. It's the main ingredient in DARPA's hydrogels. Its main objective is said to be to control your mind. Some folks say that black goo, graphene oxide, is secretly added to everyday items, including some drugs being handed out right now. The ingredients are kept hidden under the title Trade Secret. You're supposed to be given the entire list of all ingredients in every drug you're about to take into your body. You have the right to know, they say, and then they don't tell you. In our new and exciting world, some folks like to live on the edge. They're willing to be injected with unknown substances with new and wonderful, well, more like bizarre, side effects. Anybody out there growing a tail yet? Black goo has been found in many things such as air, food, water, face masks, and medications. It's kind of like high fructose corn syrup. It's in everything, and it's not good for you. Another kind of black goo was found on a road in 2018. A man walking along a roadway in Thule Island, which is part of the Falklands, saw a black substance that at first he thought was tar. The shiny stuff was moving as if it were alive. Samples were taken and put into two different boxes for study. The two samples looked as if they were trying to join back up together. The substance was made of mineral oil containing high amounts of M-state gold, that's gold with absolutely no contaminants or additives, and iridium, a very hard, brittle, silver-white metal of the plutonium group. It is considered the second densest natural occurring metal. No one could say why this goo was on the road, where it had come from, or what happened to it. The stories all dried up right after the first few days. A black goo has also been found washed up on a few beaches along the Gulf of Mexico. The usual explanation is this is just coming from an oil leak deep under the water. Others think this might be from a UFO or some alien base down there. All I could find on the black goo was that it's either a chemical invented by some secret lab and put into our food and water to kill us or control us, or it comes from outer space, but it's being used for the same purpose, to control or to kill. Thank you, TF, for these ideas. I hope I was able to find what you were looking for. If you have an idea for a show, you can contact me at strangethings@arkanasa.com. Remember, Christmas is coming up fast. Time to start your Christmas shopping, unless you're one of those guys that likes to wait until December 24th and then fight the crowds. Books and t-shirts make good gifts. They're easy to wrap. If you drop them, they don't break, and you don't have to put any batteries. Plus, if the person that gets the gift doesn't like it, he can always package it back up and give it to somebody else. Until next Saturday, this is Chris James for Strange Things.
Are you coming to the tree where they strung up a man? They say murder 3. Strange things that happen here. How stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree?